Well, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. And it's a great pleasure to have everyone on board. And I'd like to welcome our sir, Mr. Angelo, to continue the webinar. And in the initial phase, I will give an introduction about World Academy. So after that, then we'll continue the webinar. So welcome to the webinar. We are World Academy for Research and Development, and we are a UK-based organization. And currently, we are operating in more than 60 countries. And to keep up with the quality of the education, we have the ISO certification. And just to give you a glimpse idea of the ISO certification, we have it's 21,001, 17,024, 30,414, and 40,180. So these are all management system for educational organization, general requirements for body operation certificates. And we also have, I'm sorry, did I stop sharing my screen?
No, we can see it.
All right. Just a moment. So as I was saying, we also have the HRM guidelines for internal and external HR capital reporting and information technology that's focusing on quality of learners, education, and training. Well, these are a couple of our global affiliations. So as I've said before, that we are operating in more than 60 countries. We are also a member of the American Accreditation Association, an approved center by Cambridge Academy of Professionals UK, ProfPol UK, and Board of HR Certification UK. We are a very proud provider of approved provider of HRCI, SHRM, and ATD. I believe those who are related to the HR industry, they are well aware of these institute. And it's good that there are a couple of programs that are academically aligned with SHRM that we are also providing. We are an accredited institute by the International Professional Accreditation Council Singapore, a member of CPD Certification Service UK, and currently partnering with Singapore Training and Development Association, KPI Specialist, and Academy of Business English. So these are brief about World Academy, and we have a couple of classes in the month of November, as we are a training institute. So I think everyone should know what courses we have. On the 15th of November, we have the Certified HR Generalist starting, which will be held on Fridays. Then we have the CPMS, which is a Certified Project Management Specialist, which starts on the November 16th. We have on the November 17th, the Certified Internal Audit, which is going to be on Sundays. Then we have the Certified OKR Professionals, which will start on the 22nd of November. So as this is the session based on OKR, if anybody is interested, please do join this program. And we also have the Certified Financial Risk Manager on the 23rd of November. The classes will be on Saturdays. Then we have the Postgraduate Diploma in Logistics and Supply Chain Management on the 24th of November. The December classes, well, there are a couple of classes in December. We have the KPI Specialist, which starts in the 6th of December. And there's a special discount going on for this particular program. It's 40% off. And also we have the Certified Supply Chain Management Professionals on the 6th of December. The classes will be on Fridays. We have a Certified HR Lead Auditor on the 7th of December, which has a 50% off because this is the first batch. And we also have the Certified Corporate Finance Analyst, which is on 7th of December. The classes will be on Saturdays. And finally, the 14th of December, we have the Diploma in Project Management, which the classes will be on Saturdays. So these are the upcoming sessions. If anyone is interested, please do communicate with us. And we will provide you all the information that is required, how to enroll in this course and everything. So that is all from my part. I would like to ask Sir to carry out with the rest of the webinar. I won't take any much more time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tawhid. Yeah, so I'll take over from this point. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Hopefully, this is going to be a really eye-opening session for all of you, because that's my experience when I have this discussion with people around the world. So to start, I would like to ask you a very simple question. Let me share my presentation with you first of all. Nashmal, can you confirm? I can see. Okay. You can see my.
Yes, sir, I can see your presentation.
I'll run
Yes.
it. I'll get the presentation mode. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to just ask you one question. I'll give you a bit of introduction myself soon after that. The question is this: what is the top challenge? It should be the top challenge, right? I'm just curious on the top one, right? Just one challenge faced by the organization that you're working for. It might be your own organization, it might be an organization that you are working for. So whatever it is, I want to hear from you, right? What your stance on this? Just think of all the problems that the organization is facing currently, that has faced in the past years, and just answer this single question. The question is again, what is the top challenge faced by your organization, right? And I'm gonna ask you to, I'm gonna share with you a quick link. Let me put that in the chat. So I'll just stop. Thank you for giving your input. So I encourage everyone to answer this. So this will be a quite interesting insight. All right. So I think quite a lot of input there. It's changing as you see. Let's give it another minute and see how interesting it will be. All right. I think this is great input so far. Thank you for interacting and providing your feedback here. So I'll just run through this, right? So everyone is participating, I mean, kind of giving your feedback, which is great, as you see the changes happening to the word cloud. I see one highlight here, my CEO is toxic. That's a special problem, I guess. Okay, so let's run through some of these answers. As you see, right, what comes out would be the most obvious answers. So as you see, right, so some of the things are around employee engagement. You will also see less parking space, which is a logistical problem, change management, skill manpower hiring, management, unavailability of IZ, compliance culture, a DIRA, what is it? Okay. Parking of vehicles, or again, parking issue. Quite a lot of colleagues thinking of that, I guess. People are not committed, underemployment, align all department work. So that's the misalignment we talk about. Unavailable, so we discussed that. So how can manage flow of correct info, time lapse of workforce, non-innovative, scalability, no integrity, no transparency, implementation of KPI, which is another interesting aspect, right? This is, based on my consultation experience, this is one of the key burning points that most of the organizations go through. Either they have too less gauges or too much gauges that they want to keep track of. So they lose the art of tracking, right? Tracking becomes inefficient due to that. So that's a great input as well. Thank you for that. IT security, sustain potential people, which is absolutely a problem in all regions of the world. Employee engagement, all that, right? So great input, right? Thank you for the input again. And I'm gonna start sharing the slide deck from now on. Just give me a few seconds. Right here. Where is that one? All right. Let's start from there. Okay, so here's my stance, right? It's based on what you have said. Some of you have focused on some logistical issues, which is perfectly all right. But if you ask the question quite seriously, observe what you have seen for the last few years that you have been working in your organization or multiple organizations, there are some obvious challenges that we all go through day in, day out, right? So let's see what these problems are. If I just narrow down to 5 major burning points, right? Major problems that any organizations would go through, I would say we can see certain patterns, right? One thing is, one major problem that we have is the focus. It's not just organizational problem, it's a generation problem as well. So I've been teaching the younger kids, teenage kids, for the last few months, and one thing that I'm really seeing in them is lack of focus, right? They are highly distracted with what they do. It's simply this, right? So they are in the lecture, they are just pretending to listen, and they can't simply keep their attention on the lecture just for a few minutes. What happens is they just draw their attention into their mobile phone, smartphone that's with them. So this is being a problem organizationally as well, in families as well. So if any organization wants to do great work, this is a major obstacle that they need to go through, that they need to resolve. Therefore, if any particular organization has this power, this particular area as a focus area, it becomes a superpower, right? Laser-like focus. What does that mean, right? If you really want to have high performance in your teams, in your organization, you got to have absolute focus on what you have to work on. Now, one thing there is clarity first. If you ask this question yourself, hey, how much clarity do I have in terms of what the organization is trying to achieve? You might be anywhere in the organization ladder, organizational structure, it doesn't matter, right? As someone working for the given organization, you must have crystal clear clarity what the organization is trying to do, what obstacles that the organization go through. More importantly, what are the strategic and tactical goals that the organization is trying to accomplish, right? And I'm pretty sure if I ask you, hey, tell me the top strategic goal that your company is trying to achieve in the next 3 months, 99% of you might not be able to answer it clearly. You might have some sort of answer, but it's not going to be the exact answer. Now, this is the problem, right? This is one of the biggest problems that we have in our organization. That's one. So if any organization can have this capability, it becomes a superpower. It becomes a extra capability that allows you to become a high-performing team. So OKR can help you there, number one. The second, so if you ask me, okay, Niro, understood, right? Agreed. What could be the second major problem that the organizations are going through? Commit to priorities. Now, again, right? So think of personally. How much work you're trying to accomplish within a given day? How much priorities you have for a given week, given month, given quarter, given 1 year? So we are pretty much overwhelmed by the number of priorities that we are trying to tackle. So we get lost in between trying to work on multiple goals that we want to accomplish ourselves individually as well as organizationally. We get lost ourselves in a jungle of too many objectives, right? The problem is it's very little you can achieve individually as well as an organization. Therefore, right, starting with the right focus, you should be able to commit to the priorities that you decided as the top priorities for you. So if you cannot say, hey, these are the top 3 priorities for my team for the next 3 months, you're almost failing there. You're highly unlikely to become a high-performing team. Why? There's no way you can do all the priorities that come your way and become a high-performing team, right? Think of it individually, right? You might be so excited to become great. You might be so excited to become wealthier, richer, right? Become a giant in your niche. But one of the problems we all go through individually as well as organizations is not being able to figure out the right priorities, number one. Second, not being able to commit to the top priorities, because one thing, you're failing to understand what your top priorities are. Second, although you understand too many priorities, therefore you fail to commit to those priorities. OKRs can solve this problem, right? So that's the second one. The third problem, as well as the superpower, right? When it's a bigger problem, when it's one of the biggest problems that the organizations go through, being able to do the right thing, work on this challenge or the problem in a great way, effectively, becomes a superpower. That's why I call them superpower. So this is the third problem, which can become your third superpower. What is that? Align and connect for teamwork, right? So I always use the metaphor family, right? How challenging it is for us to unite as a family and ensure that we become a high-performing family, right? So when it comes to the family, it's very challenging, because as you grow, brothers and sisters, born to the same parent, it's so challenging to understand each other. It's so challenging to understand each individual's priorities. Therefore, collaborate and ensure that it's a teamwork than individual work. Yes, you have your individual focus areas, your priorities, but if you are to grow as a great family, high-performing family, you got to align. What does that mean? You should be in a position to understand each other's challenges, each other's strengths, each other's priorities, and support wherever possible, right? Otherwise, you can do your own work individually and do a great up to a level, but you will never become a high-performing family. Not even a high-performing individual. You can perform up to a level, but you're not going to end up becoming a high performer. So when it comes to the organizations, this becomes a major problem. Why? Multiple personalities coming from various cultural backgrounds, various calibers, putting together, calling it a team and asking them to work together. Now, 99% of time again, right? And researchers have proven that alignment and connections become a major aspect for high performance. That essentially means if you have 10 people in your team, or the 10 individuals in your team should connect and align properly to move into one direction. Now, what generally happens is 10 people are kind of pulling into 10 different directions, right? So this does not allow you to progress. So you can think of it, right? It might not be that severe. It might be a bit of exaggeration, but definitely aligning as a team, connecting with the individuals in your team, in your organization becomes a major challenge, right? It's top to bottom, right? From the CEO, the board of directors, to the most junior employee of your organization, there has to be alignment, right? You would have heard of the NASA story, right? When NASA was trying to send a man on the moon, you could go and ask anyone in NASA, one single question, and the answer would be just one. The question was, hey, what are you doing, right? If you ask it from the top hierarchical person, right? The CEO, the directors, or the VP, the managers, even a janitor, they would respond with the same response. The response was mostly saying, hey, we are sending a man on the moon. That is how crucial the team alignment and connection is, right? For you to align, you need to understand what's going on. You need to understand the first two elements that we spoke about, right? You need to understand what the organization is trying to achieve, what the focus area, right? And then you start committing and ensuring that you understand your role, right? So that's the third element. Let's look at the fourth one. Fourth one is another major challenge that I have observed in my training and corporate journey. In most of the consultations, this is one of the top priorities to solve: accountability. Now, here's the deal. In most of the organizations in the world have something called organization chart, right? Now, let me ask you one thing again. Have you seen your organization chart, and how often see that, right? The answer might vary. Some of you might say, yes, I saw it as I joined the company, but after that, I never saw it. Also, I didn't have a requirement to go back to it. Well, you might say, hey, yeah, sometimes, when these management changes happen, the management team, the leadership team pull it up and then changes that and show that. But, the question is, does that help you to understand the accountabilities? My observation, again, is not so well. It does clarify certain things up to a level, but it does not create so much clarity around the area of accountability. So when you work on objectives and key results, one of the key aspects is to create crystal clear accountability within your organization. That means if you have a 25-member organization, all the 25 members must know what they are accountable for. And in many cases, in most of the cases, what can happen is there are redundant efforts put in by multiple people. Therefore, everyone is confused. No one knows what they're responsible for, right? There's no central place where you can go and say, hey, this is what it looks like. This is my accountability, right? Things change. Things are totally different from the JD. Things are very different to what is being told in your interviews. But no one is being able to track that properly, right? So if you are to grow, if you are to adopt OKRs, one of the key aspects is also to track for accountability. You need to know who does what, which is a challenging thing, right? Think of a 1,000-member organization. How can you do this, right? It's not easy, but you got to do it. Otherwise, what happens is people will pull into multiple directions. There's no single direction maintained. Therefore, while one person is trying to speed up, one person will pull, right? And that will slow down efforts, right? So this is another problem which can become your fourth superpower. The last focus area for the superpower that I want you to kind of acknowledge as we start the session is stretch for excellence. So it's simply stretching yourself. Again, if you are a fitness enthusiast, you know how important stretching for you to build up muscle, right? If you don't stretch the muscle, right, before you do the heavy workout, it's going to break. It's going to damage the muscle, right? So you have to prepare your muscle before you do the heavy weight lifting. Also, if you do not do the stretching, right, there's no growth. If you go and lift pillows, right, cotton pillows in the gym, I mean, no growth, right? For you to grow, you have to ensure that you stretch the muscle and break the muscle, right? The problem is there's a limit, right? So most of organizations fail to draw that limit. So if you don't stretch enough, you don't grow. If you stretch too much, it breaks you, right? So this is a tricky area. As much as you should stretch, you should also draw the right limit. Otherwise, people will break. They will burn out, right? And they will not enjoy what they do. So these are the top 5 challenges that I have observed that are basically pointed out by many surveys done. Out of these 4, these 4 things out of these 5 are basically mentioned by the founder or the person who paid a lot of attention on the inception of OKRs, John Dewar, right? In his book, Measure What Matters, he highlights these superpowers, right? So that, right? So I want you to just get a very high level helicopter view about these few things before we really understand what should be the challenges that you have to focus on. So one thing, if you want to become a high performer, if you want to ensure that your team and organization become a high performing team organization, you must understand your top problems, right? These top problems are like cancer, right? Imagine there's a person with a cancer, right? Until you figure out that disease and figure out that this is a cancer and this is what it is, whatever the effort you put in will not help the person, right? So in your organization, there might be widespread cancers, right? Not just one, multiple of them. So if you try to grow without curing these cancers, there's no possibility. I think a lot of organizations go through this, right? And their strategies that they don't try to cure their diseases, rather they implement growth strategies. It's not going to work. The first thing is to figure out what that disease is, what your sickness is. Second, while you're curing, while you're recovering, you can actually introduce certain growth and recovery strategies, right? It's the same scenario that the organization got to follow. Now, with that, let me introduce you one of the brand new concepts that I have come across based on my research and my reading multiple books around the organizational growth, organizational high performance. I have concluded that OKR is a must-have management methodology that every organization should adopt, right? So if you know my background, I'm an agilist. I'm a agile consultant, agile strategist, and a coach. My initial years of coaching was fully on the agile frameworks, mainstream agile frameworks, things like Scrum, Kanban, even utilizing some of the lean management principles, embedding them into the agile practices that we adopt organizationally. Now, so the agile frameworks, right, have certain scaling approaches. So you would have heard certain scaling frameworks like SAFe, Scale Agile Framework, which is a good thing, right? But the problem I saw there on these frameworks like SAFe, LACE, they're not kind of fitting into the entire organization, right? They kind of focus on scaling up the agile practices that were implemented on the team level, right? So they do work, but the problem would be there will be certain areas that are not looked into. So when I got to know objectives and key results, and one more framework built on top of OKRs called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, I saw the potential that it can bring to the organization wanting to grow, wanting to become high-performing organizations, right? Particularly scaling up their agile practices into scaled practices at the organizational level. Now, let me explain. When I say agile, you don't have to be a technical team. Agility simply means you are able to look at your strategy, break that strategy down into the execution, right? The tangible goals that can be accomplished within a shorter period of time. May the duration be 1 month or 3 months. So what you're trying to do is to break down your big strategy into 3 months set of priorities, and further down into actionable tasks and priorities that are assigned to the teams, right? So agility means just 3 things. You don't have to be a tech company to become agile. You just have to ensure that you adopt this mindset of adaptability. Agility is all about adaptability, right? So at the team level, let's say you have major priorities to be delivered. So you look at those priorities and then ask the question, hey, what can we deliver in the next 3 months, right? Then the agile asks you to work on 3 pillars. 1, transparency. Make the things transparent. Second, you work on inspection. So when you make the things transparent, when you make the priorities transparent, when you make your obstacles and challenges transparent, you can inspect that appropriately. Initially, you plan and then start working on it. While you're working, you are actually paying a lot of attention on what you do and how you do the work. So while inspecting, while looking at that, you are making certain decisions, right? And that brings adaptability. So you make the things transparent first place. Through transparency, you inspect. When you inspect, you understand what is working well, what is not working well. Through that learning, you are adapting your plan. So what you do is you break down the 3 months into smaller time chunks, right? Could vary from 1 week to 1 month, let's say 1 week. So you break down 3 months strategy, 3 months goals into 1 week, and then look at 1 week work, right? Plan the work, do the work. While you're doing, you inspect and adapt. Then understand, okay, things work this way and certain things didn't work. So you learn from that inspection and adaptation and adapt the next cycle. So next week will be a much more productive week, improved week. You continuously improve, right? So that's agility. So if you want to become a high-performing organization, one thing is that, right? Whether you are a technical organization or not, you need to have agility mindset in your production layers. On top of it, why I say that is, right? Let's say, no, you might say, hey, yes, I do understand, but my organization is totally traditional. We do plan for the entire 1 year, and then we are given tasks. We are given long-term projects, so we work on it, and there's no way we can break down into 1 week work. Then there is a blocker. So this becomes a blocker for you to implement OKRs, right? One prerequisite that I always recommend for my clients when I work with them, when I help them to transform into OKR framework, is implementing that agile practices, right? At least basic level of agility should be in place in your production teams, right? So you shouldn't be a team or organization planning upfront and saying, hey, this is our 1 hour 1 year priorities and you got to work on them. Then teams are just really hustling around these 1 year priorities and they try to contribute, but they can't, right? It's not going to work. So ideally, you need to make it somewhat agile oriented, agile based, so that the OKRs can work, right? Let's keep it aside, right? Let's come into the whole organizational perspective. Now, look at your organization. If you look at your organization, if you ask the question, hey, what are the major components, what are the major elements that my organization should be focusing to become a high-performing organization? Remember, OKR is meant for high performance. It's not for an organization to just become a mediocre organization. What Google said was, right? You can Google and find out Google, right? What they said is what Larry Page, who is the founder of Google, said was, every few years' time, they 10x using OKRs. So that highlights, that emphasizes the use case for OKRs. OKR is not for you to become a mediocre, comfortable organization. OKRs should be adopted if you are ready to stretch yourself, if you are ready to go beyond what is possible, what is capable for your team and organization, right? This is not to achieve the regular, comfortable results, right? Therefore, if any organization want to adopt OKRs, they need to ask this question. The question is, what are the top 5 components? What are the top 5 elements that my organization should focus on, right? And again, based on my 3 decades of work and the studies and research that I've done, I have concluded with 5 major components that every organization must have, irrespective of the size. It could be a startup, it could be a scale-up, it could be a big corporate. Doesn't matter. Every single organization should have focused on these 5 elements. Number 1, strategy. Every organization who wants to become a high-performing organization must have a smart strategy, clever strategy, right? The second, people. This is a mostly overlooked aspect, element. We do understand people are important. We do understand, we acknowledge, yeah, we want to have the right people. Yeah. But, again, ask the question, how much confidence you have in terms of the people in your organization? And you see this as a major problem in your organization as well as countries, right? And you know, I have gone through this. I think, you know, one of the biggest problems some of our countries are facing is this, right? The people who is leading, right? Also who is in that country. So it's two-way thing, right? It's the leadership as well as the people in the organization, right? So they both have to be the right people. Now, my stance on people is, which is confirmed by many leaders in the world, many frameworks available as well, is put the right people in the right seat. This includes finding out the right capable individuals who can contribute the optimum results. Second, getting rid of the people who do not fit in, right? Example, if you have a culture that you have decided is right culture, let's say a very collaborative culture, and there is someone who is not fitting into it, right? What's the cost? One person can ruin the whole organizational culture, right? It could be a leader, it could be just a low-level employee, doesn't matter, right? One person with the wrong mindset, the wrong values is enough to jeopardize the whole situation. So this is how critical it is, right? And the other problem is, now again, you ask your question, in your organization, are you 100% satisfied in terms of the contribution you do, right? I can guarantee I have felt this, right? But I have, whenever I felt, most of the time I have gone to my manager and clarified the things, right? But you know, it's not that easy. Time to time, we fall into the same trap of not being assigned with the right type of work, right? Imagine, right? Your potential is 2x as what you're contributing now, right? Or say you are a very creative person, but you are stuck in a role where no creativity is needed, right? And I see this is happening in most of the cases because you are being recruited for a job, right? And then you develop yourself. You also have various other skills and competencies, but the company does not recognize that. They don't even utilize 50% of your competencies. So this is a problem, right? We pay more attention on recruiting a new guy than training someone who is inside, right? And when you do that, what happens is you spend a lot of time and energy and money on recruitment, right? And you recruit and see, okay, this is not the guy we wanted or the girl we wanted. So this has been a constant problem that pretty much every organization goes through at times. So if you are to become a high-performing organization, you have to ensure that you optimize your recruitment strategy, you optimize your recruitment approach, you optimize your training and people analyzing capabilities. You understand who is good on what, right, and put them in the right seat. This is a major focus area, right? This is difficult to achieve in big organization, but we got to do it. Easy to achieve in startups and scale-ups, but we all got to do it, right? So, and I have been working in 300, they're one of the biggest organizations in the world, a bank. So they're one of the biggest problems was that, right? I see every day there is someone joining, few people joining. When I look at the teams in other countries, there are several people joining every day. But the problem was, right, there are a lot of times that we ended up with the wrong people. And when we figured that, okay, this guy is not fitting into it, we are kind of stuck, right? And we do the wrong thing in every possible way. We try to chase them than, doing the right thing. So I'm not saying, hey, when you figure out someone not fitting, just chase the person away, right? That might be the option, the last option. But there are multiple things that you can do, right? Upskilling the person and ensuring that you actually work towards this goal. People focus. Third element that you got to focus on is priorities. Again, think of yourself, right? If I ask you to mentally score yourself, how good are you in terms of your priorities, figuring out your priorities in a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest? Where do you place yourself? And I'm sure 70 to 80% of you would say, hey, yeah, I'm not that good, right? I have so many priorities and this has been a weak area for me. If I figure out the right priorities, I feel like I can do much greater. So imagine a big organization, imagine your organization, right? If you cannot figure this out effectively yourself, how challenging it is for the organization to do that. The problem is there's no clear strategy around prioritization, right? Figuring out the right priorities that your organization should be focusing on, right? These are also the top issues, right? Not necessarily limited to the issues, but these are the issues, the top issues that you go through, like what we discussed initially. If you can figure out individually, if you can figure out your biggest problem as a person, I think you can break through, because we keep running, right? We keep running the rat race that we are in, simply because we claim we don't have enough time to look back, look at ourselves, right? How many of you sit down and think of you every day, every week, right? I was here, but some time back, I realized this is not going to work, right? As much as I pay attention on what I work on, I have to pay attention on what my important priorities are. So for that, you have to look back. You have to question a lot, right? In an organization, this is one of the daunting tasks, right? It's not easy because there are multiple divisions, multiple verticals that you are trying to work with. And, all these verticals will demand certain things, right? So everything put together is so difficult to finalize the priorities, right? I think there are some questions. Let me just have I'll go back here. Let me see whether. Yeah, thank you for the comments, Habib. People means human resource. Yeah, so Habib, it's not just human. Yeah, so human resource is the department or the division formed to manage people. Yeah, so they have a much bigger role, right? This is what I'm saying. People means everyone in the organization, right? It's something like a family, right? If you look at the family as a metaphor, everyone in the family should felt, hey, I'm at my best. How challenging it is, right? For you to feel you have the exact, the position that you wish to have within a family. I mean, everyone is happy about you. Everyone is so cooperative. Everyone is collaborative, all that, right? And also you understand your weaknesses and strengths. Yeah. So people is basically the one of the key success factors of any given organization. So what we are saying here is we got to make it a priority, looking into the people, right? Carrot and sticks don't work anymore. It should be genuine appreciations and recognitions that they are looking for, right? So they need to be felt like, hey, I'm part of it. I'm part of this organization, right? Thank you for asking that. Yeah, so, okay, so these are some of the...
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right.
Actually, I am speaking from Dhaka. Thank you, sir, for your valuable class. But I think nowadays, tech-savvy and technological infrastructure also most important tools for any organization in terms of subcontinentals, like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
technological adaptation also most important value carries
absolutely
for any organization.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Now,
Yes.
Here, these 5 things, Habib and everyone, these are like, if you look at, if you try to identify what really matters, right? what really matters for the organizations to grow, they come at the bottom, right? On top of this, technology has to be there. But that becomes a bit of a secondary thing if you don't fix these things. That is what we are saying. Example, like yourself, right? If you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the right strategy, no technology can help you, right? Does that make sense? So
Right,
the
sir.
same
Yes.
way, the organizations, I think we pay too much attention on these things that can come later, right? Before you actually pay attention on the technology, these basics got to be fixed. Does that make sense? You can also put technology as another wheel and say this is the sixth element, which is fine. But you know what I'm saying is, right? If you start fixing these things and paying attention on these 5 elements as an organization, everything else will be aligned, right? You get what I'm saying? So if you have a clear strategy, if you have clear priorities, then your technology can optimize the efforts. It can reduce the time you spend, the energy put in, etc. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So
Thank you, sir.
I'm just going to run through this due to the timing. So the fourth element is the processes. Now, again, if you look at the industrial evolution, you would have found that we have evolved from labor intensive workforce organizations into the process oriented organizations, right? The industrial evolution introduced 2 strict processes, right? It worked. Now, in my small days, I remember, like even when I started my career 2 decades ago, right? There was a lot of emphasis on strict processes in every organization, especially when I worked for that big bank. I mean, pretty much everything had a very strict process, right? I remember when I joined the organization to get my computer set up, it took about 10 days, right? I have seen worst cases where certain colleagues joined after me, waited like 3 weeks to get the computer. Why? There was a procedure and people got to follow that procedure, right? Yes, process is absolutely important, but too much attention paid on this can be a killer, can be a big obstacle for your high performance. Now, this is where the modern world is not going to tolerate any time spent useless, right? Any time spent without an ROI. So the lean processes will ensure that you are just figuring out the right set of steps and just limit it to those steps. That's it, right? Your primary focus is to get the work done, nothing else, right? And yes, you got to be, compliance with certain policies, security, all that, which is absolutely required. But, while you're doing that, you need to ensure that you make it lean. You remove the unnecessary steps involved in the process. So this is another aspect that you got to work on when you're working on OKRs, right? So here's the thing, right? When we say OKR stands for objectives and key results, right? What is it? Objective is a goal. It's a direction that you give yourself, right? What are the key results? Key results are basically defining the milestones for you to reach your goal, to reach your direction. But in order to do that, right, you got to refine these 5 elements. Okay? Lean processes will ensure that you have the most optimum set of steps to work on. You don't overspend on the process, on the processor. So that's the 4th thing. The 5th thing is the execution. So this is the key, right? And see, I mean, objectives and key results is an execution framework. Remember that. More than a planning tool, it's an execution framework. It's an execution tool, right? What it does is it allows you to optimize your execution within the organization. This is one of the key failure points for any organization. If any organization is struggling, if you are struggling as an individual, I can tell you, it's not about planning. You have great plans. It's about the execution, right? How you execute the plans. OKRs is primarily contributing towards the execution. So this is why I call this operating system. So if the organization needs to operate, it needs to operate the most optimum way possible. These 5 elements got to be refined, right? And here is the potential, right? If you can pay sufficient attention on objectives and these 5 elements, your objective and key results adoption, OKR adoption becomes a smooth journey. If you do have problems, major problems in these 5 areas, I wouldn't even consult such organization on OKRs. I would simply try to fix these problems before we adopt OKRs, because as I said earlier, objectives and key results are not meant for fixing your basic problems. Let me repeat. OKRs are not meant for fixing your fundamental problems, like your cultural issues, your strategic issues, your people issues, your priority issues, your process issues, or very basic execution issues, right? You got to have a stable operating system for you to get started on OKRs. That's the trick. That is the most overlooked aspect in most of the organizations who are really hurrying their OKR adoption. And I see a lot of at least several organizations trying to say, hey, we are following OKRs. But when I look at what they do, they simply have set of goals with key results, nothing else. That's not OKRs, right? Remember, OKRs is not just an extension to objectives. That's a mythical belief that majority of organizations end up, because it's easy to conclude that way, because this comes as a kind of an extension to objectives, because every organizations are following objectives, right? And again, technically, these traditional objectives are based on the management methodology introduced by Peter Drucker called management by objectives. Peter Drucker himself acknowledge, you can search, you can Google and see, Peter Drucker has made very clear statements saying, hey, although I introduce MBOs, I acknowledge that this might not be the ultimate way to structure your priorities or goals, right? He has seen quite a lot of challenges with objectives, just objectives being the base to operate, right? Therefore, he has done a declaration that way. And then HBS, Harvard Business School, in 1991, did a research paper, and they titled that paper saying, "Can goals go wild?" Right? They proved through their extensive research work, the goals, as much as goals can help organizations to grow, they can be the single point of failure, right? If you craft the wrong goal, you ask the organization to collapse. Why? It's something like this, right? If you want to run 100 meters as fast as possible, your direction is a key, right? You need to know which direction you should run. If you don't know the direction, right, you may run the other way, right? And you're not going to achieve your goal, because your goal is to run in one direction, but you're running in the other way. So that is how critical your goals are. And when OKRs was introduced by Andy Grove, who was the founder of, who is considered the father of OKRs, who was a senior manager at Intel before 1990, he basically used MBOs, right? He saw the gap, he saw the problems with challenges that he has with objectives, management by objectives. So he worked on MBOs, objectives, and he improved that to be OKRs, objectives and key results. So it's not just an extension, to objectives. Of course, yes, you on top of objectives, you introduce this magical term called key results, which are milestones, which are key deliverables that you want to accomplish in order to achieve your big goal, right? But that's not it. There are a few other elements that you have to focus on. And these are some of the components that you got to focus on, right? And one other aspect that you have to focus on in terms of adopting OKRs is the cycle. What does that mean? This is one of the major reasons why MBOs failed. MBOs were a one-off activity, one-time activity, right? At the beginning of any given financial year, the leadership will craft their strategic objectives, cascade it down to the senior leadership cascade it down to the middle leadership, middle management cascade it down to the tactical management. Tactical managers, those are team managers, will cascade that down to the team. So when I worked at that bank, do you believe that when I was a manager managing a 30-member team together with co-managing actually with few other managers, that was an international team, it took more than 3 to 4 months for the objectives to reach the team, right? So you're talking about a financial year, 3 months gone, 1/4 of the year is gone by the time it came down to me, my team, right? Then we just communicate that, right? And that's not going to work because people are not aware what it is and they are highly confused what they are talking about because there's a strong communication gap, right? So cycle is ensuring that you break down your execution time box to a shorter, the most optimal time box that the people are comfortable with, people can perform well. And it is proven that by multiple researchers, humans have the shortest attention span, right? And in one research, it said that it found that it is even shorter. Humans' attention span is shorter than a goldfish, right? The attention span of a goldfish, which is absurd, right? See, here's the problem. Like if you ask a question, how much time? I mean, it might be so challenging for you to pay 100% attention to what I'm saying. That's the problem, right? So we tackle that through the cycle. The recommended OKR cycle is 3 months. Within 3 months, we break down the activities, cadences into certain key checkpoints, as well as planning and inspection activities. You plan and inspect and adopt, right? That's basically that. So we are kind of over the time, but Nashmal, how do we allow any questions from anyone?
Hi, sir. How are you? This is Rupak here.
Hi, Rupak. Hey.
So, well, we can open for the question and answer. If there is any question coming from the participants, we can answer that as well.
Yep.
So, dear delegates, it's an open forum right now. If you want to ask any question, by the way, there is a question in the chat box that where does the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit, link to OKR?
Which one is that?
Yeah, it is where does the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit, link to OKR? Mr. Hamanta asked this question in the chat box.
Okay, people,
planet, and profit.
Planning and profit.
Planet.
The
Earth, right.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a good one, right? So you see people directly here, right? Probably this was asked before presenting this slide. Yeah, so it's primarily focused on the overall the organization, right? So if you look at the overall organization, these things are part of these 5 elements as well, right? So it's something like this. Let's imagine. Rupak, can you just type? I tend to kind of forget those 3 terms.
Yeah, I can just type it in the chat box again. You can see.
Yes, I get it. I see it.
Right.
Thank you for that. People, planet, profit. Yeah, I mean, see, high performance is something like this, right? So we talk about the high performance. Profit comes as part of it. High performance is basically you are expected to do a job and you do that job, right? If you rate your performance 1 to 10, 10 is being the highest performance, which will give you the biggest profit, biggest ROI. Our effort is to even cross that, right? And that is where Larry Page has been making a very clear statement about the impact of OKRs. What he said is, right, our underlying management methodology that allows us to 10x every few years' time is OKRs, right? It's something like this. So ask this, Hemant, yourself, right? So how much money you earn for the years? You don't have to tell it, but just figure it out mentally. And if you want to double it, ask the question, what could you do, right? So if you want to 10x it, what are the changes that you have to introduce yourself, right? This is what we talk about. This is what OKR can bring to you, right? And it's pretty much everything that you do, right? And also you would have heard of this this great management theory called 80-20 principle that essentially emphasize 80% of the outcome or the results that you generate comes from 20% of your effort. But mostly individually and organizationally, what we do is we pay attention on every possible priority, every possible thing comes our way and expect, the biggest return, which is not going to happen, right? So if your challenge is to find out that 20% of priorities, yeah, and for you to do that 20% of priorities, if you think of individually, you got to equip yourself, right? If you do not have right competencies in you, you're not going to do that because you might figure out the priorities, but you're not capable. So
Right.
will the organizations. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maruf Billah, you can ask your question.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes. Nice and clear.
Hi, Mr. Niro. Our question is OKR connected with reward, recognition, or promotion? Like, is it integrated?
That's a good question. My recommendation is don't. Right? See, it's something like this, right? It's something like the approach that we have been used to, right? And carrots and sticks is coming from that, right? The thing is this, right? When you link up performance evaluations closely tied with the OKR adoption, this becomes a bit of a political game, right? And then you are losing that opportunity for the people to try out new things, try out challenging stuff. You tend to protect yourself against those goals assigned to you, right? Therefore, stretching becomes almost impossible. It's going to be the minimal stretching that people will do because I don't want to fail, right? I don't want to commit to something that's bigger and fail and then end up compromising my bonus, right? Therefore, my recommendation is that you can get certain indications from the OKRs, but don't tie it very closely, right? Have your performance evaluation methods separated from your OKR efforts because your effort is to make your organization a high-performing organization. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, one question from my side that I mean, KPI, one of the very prominent and widely used method for performance management system nowadays.
Yes.
So how it is different than the OKR, or how is it one is complementing to others, or towards quite separate directions, or what else? What is your comments on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Rupak. Yes, I would say it can be complementing, but in general, they are like opposites, right? Here's the thing, right? When I work with the clients, I don't directly go and challenge the KPIs, right? Because it's kind of embedded into the organizations for years, decades, right? And the moment you say KPIs don't work, and some companies are doing great, right? And they want to emphasize their growth, then now they are trying to implement OKR. So in that case, Rupak, what I would say is let's complement KPIs, right? Because otherwise it becomes a fight between the technical jargons. I try to avoid the conflicts between the technical terms, right? And look at what their KPIs are. And I'm not surprised to see some meaningless KPIs in many organizations, and also hundreds of KPIs in certain organizations, which is not helpful, right? In OKR, what we believe is we need to have metrics. Metrics are like, it's something like this. When you're driving a car, you have gauges, right? You have certain meters to indicate how healthy the car is, right? Whether you are in a red zone or in terms of the speed or not, right? That is important. It's not important for you to know the technical details of the car, right? You don't need to know how much, the fuel consumption in a technical term. What you need to know is certain gauges that allow you to be a better driver.
True. True.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
It's the same thing when it comes to KPIs versus how OKRs wants to track it. So we develop something called scorecard, which is quite closer to that. But the difference is this: KPIs would provide very detailed, very strict indications of what's happening inside, as opposed to the scorecard will be a pulse check, right? Again, a metaphor used is when you go to a doctor checks your pulses, right? That's enough for the doctor to figure out whether you are healthy or unhealthy, or even figure out what kind of sickness you have, right? So it's the same thing that we need to do as managers, nothing else, right? We don't have to pay ultra attention into these KPIs week by week basis. It's a bit of a energy waste and time waste. People spend hours and hours preparing these statistics, right? And we analyze them hours, correct? So that's the problem. So we focus on the high performance. Keeping high performance in mind, we develop pulse checks. Weekly basis, we do that pulse checks, right? And when the pulse is going towards the unhealthy side, then we go and inspect. Then we can use those KPIs as well, right? Does that make sense? So that's why I said it can complement, but they're generally not very much synergized by default.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments on this particular issues.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So dear delegates, any other question? There is a question in the chat box. Can you please look into this?
Yes. Let me open it. Okay. It's from someone.
Royal.
Okay, I couldn't pronounce the name. Thank you for that question. Will the OKR framework help individuals or team track the process of achieving alignment around measurable metrics in organization? Yeah, smart question. Yes, 100% yes. This is the whole one of the key goals that we want to focus on. If you looked at the top problem that I mentioned, which can become one of the superpowers, is alignment and connection, right? A CEO of your organization should know what's happening with every individual if need be, right? Every individual should know what the strategic goals for the given quarter, given year at any point of time. But is it the case now? Mostly no, right? Sometimes your manager will be clueless about certain strategies or certain goals that the organization is trying to achieve. Therefore, there's a huge misalignment, misconnection between different units of the organization. So when I consult, this is a key aspect. So I bring all the CXOs together, put them into one table, discuss these things, right? And I'm not surprised anymore to hear that, hey, I didn't know this, right? And majority of them say, I mean, this is totally news for me, right? And I was never part of these discussions. So accountability chart and pretty much everything that we discuss here will allow you to create that framework creating clarity, creating alignment within the organization.
Okay. There's another question in the chat box again.
Yep. All right. Yes, you just focus on the organization. How about individual businesses? Career will the same OKR applies in yes, yeah. I mean, I'm personally using OKRs, and if you look at here, there's a Kanban, right? There's a personal Kanban, and that's where I do the planning, right? And here's the thing, right? I have been doing good 10 years ago, 8 years ago when I worked for that bank and many other organizations. But the problem was the clarity. Problem was it wasn't a refined framework that I was using, right? My strategy was somewhat vague. I didn't know what I'm trying to achieve. And Rupak will say, you know, when we had the initial discussions, right, I was crystal clear what I really want to achieve in our engagement, right? So that's the right thing to do. That way, Rupak was able to make clear decisions, right? I was able to make clear decisions and convey the same thing. If not, right, we kind of waste a lot of time, end up not doing anything, right? So individually, this is absolutely applicable. So you can try. So it's primarily implementing the right set of OKRs as well as implementing the right cycle for you to execute your plans.
Thank you. And there's another questions in the chat box. How can you tell that your OKR is working? Validation of your OKRs.
All right, that's a good question. So it's not a like a random thing we suggest in OKR adoption. It's a weekly thing, right? If your OKRs work, your pulse checks will work. Right? That's how you check whether you are healthy or you're being really good, you know, performer, right? If you are doing a workout, doing workouts and trying to be healthy, right? How do you do that? You have certain gauges that you want to check every day. You check your weight, you check your pulses, you do certain medical checks, right? Keep checking that week by week basis, right? So we have weekly cadences that we will introduce. One major cadence that we introduce is called level 10, right? Level 10 is a management meeting where every management team as well as a sub team will be conducting weekly basis, where we discuss all these 5 elements. We talk about the strategy, people, priorities, processes, execution, right? And it's just 1.5 hour meeting. That is a pulse check. That's the biggest input that we can have for the team to see whether we are progressing well.
Is the last question you can take it, though we have already discussed that the KPI and OKR both are measures through the final result, but how do you differentiate between these two?
Yeah.
Second last question in the chat box.
Last question. I think that's one question.
Second last question.
Second last one.
Okay. Those.
Oh yes, got it. Yeah, KPIs and OKRs are both measures through the final results, but yeah, the difference now, see, OKR itself shouldn't be compared with KPIs. OKR is a management methodology. KPIs is not. KPIs is a way of measuring, right? KPIs is comparable with metrics used in OKRs, right? So the replacement, if you want to call it, or alternative complement to KPIs in OKR framework is metrics. Metrics are different from KPIs, whereas you just look at handful of metrics as opposed to too many KPIs. One. Second, KPIs may focus on very technical, very detailed indicators, whereas metrics, the OKRs want you to have a pulse check regularly. And then at the end of the given time box, you actually validate whether you have achieved the objectives and key results or not, right? So as I elaborated earlier, they can complement each other. But the criteria is your KPIs got to be meaningful. As much as your KPIs are meaningful, providing right insights, indications, perfectly all right, right? So you can say, hey, this is our KPI document for the organization.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just one more thing, Rupak, the organization, what we suggest is, if you have 5 departments, we suggest 5 to 7 metrics per department, no more than 5 to 7. It's going to be
Per
too
department.
much otherwise. Yeah. So you can align KPIs in the
Sure.
same approach. Yep.
The last question we can take from the chat box. How do we align individual or team OKR with the organization's larger objectives?
Absolutely a great question again. So this
Great
is
question.
another main focus for us. So remember, I told you in the traditional way of goal setting and goal management, we use a term called cascading. Yeah, cascading is top-bottom approach. It starts from the top, cascaded down to the bottom, right? So in OKRs, what we demand, what we implement is top, bottom, bottom up, and sideways. So the parallel discussions will happen at the same time when we are to plan our quarterly OKRs, and inputs will be shared, right? The teams will go to the middle management with their input, saying these are the top priorities as they think, as per their discussions. Management will discuss them together, horizontally with other same level managers. They roll up to the divisional leads and CXOs. They will discuss overall everything and finalize the organizational OKRs, right? And when it comes to the individual, so 3 levels: organizational OKRs, team level OKRs, individual OKRs, right? I think connection between organizational level and team level OKRs is clear. I mean, you break down the organizational OKRs into team level OKRs. When we do that, one great way that works is, one, look at the organizational OKRs, break them down, delegate them into the divisional heads, right? So that one divisional head would have 1 to 2, maximum 3 OKRs responsible for, right? Then, in addition to these organizational level OKRs, ask the divisional head to go and define their team level or departmental OKRs. So there are 2 sets of OKRs for the department. Certain OKRs are coming from the organizational strategy. Certain OKRs are decided at the departmental level, right? Now you go to the next level, that is the team level, the individual level. Sorry, the individual level. So individually ask the question, hey, where can you contribute? So if there are 5 members in a given department, look at their potential, look at their competencies, and assign the right OKRs individually. So my suggestion is maximum 1 OKR per person. That becomes the top priority for the individual, right?
Okay.
That got to be aligned with the strategy. It's not something just separate offline, right? It got to be aligned with something there, because one thing, this creates alignment, right? That person will be so eager and so focused to deliver that, so that he sees the outcome at the strategy level. One. The second thing is the structure. There's no better way to define a goal than OKRs. Trust me, right? So if I ask most of you now, tell me your goal for the next 3 months, I'm very certain that you'll just define it in 1 sentence. Absolutely vague way to do it. You're not going to achieve it, right? Unless you go down and clarify the details, you're not going to achieve it. For you to achieve it, you need to know the details, right? How do you define those details? Through the key results. Key results are the milestones. It's something like, if you want to say, I want to run 100 meters in 10 seconds, that's your direction. For you to achieve that, you have to have certain milestones achieved in the next 3 months, right? Step by step.
Right.
Get it?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So dear delegates, the time was up for around 30 minutes more. So we are really grateful to our trainer, and then also you delegates, those who are attending today, they have very patience. And the session makes this happens for 30 minutes more. It is the demand of the session. So thank you once again for all the delegates and also our trainer who made this session excellent one. I'm sure that people from around say 20, 25 plus countries, though the number was a little bit of low in the comparison of the registration. However, those who have joined, I'm sure they are very highly benefited from this session. Those are very introductory part. And good news is that the same resource person will take all the sessions for our certified OKR professional, which will be starting within 2 weeks time. So those who not yet enrolled, you can enroll for this course. Really, it can give you the return in the organizational performance as well as the individual performance. So that is the, best thing what we can predict. And once again, we are really grateful to you, sir, for your cooperation all the way. And hopefully we can see you in the session.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for joining.
Thank you having me, Rupak. Appreciate your support and all the guidance provided as well. Yeah. So happy to be here. Happy to share my insights here with everyone. So yeah.
Thank you. So
All
take
right.
care. We are now right now closing the session. Thanks once again. Take care. Good night from my side.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.